You are all stardust. But how did the stardust get there? From dying stars. How does that happen? Stars get their energy from fusing atoms. They start with hydrogen that formed at the beginning of the universe. After the stars run out of hydrogen, it starts using the helium it formed. When all fuel is run out, the star dies. Stars can die in two ways, depending on their mass. Small stars become highly dense objects, called white dwarfs. Big stars explode. That's called a supernova. There are two types. Type 1 is a star or white dwarf accumulating matter from the neighbor until a nuclear reaction ignites. The stars that turn into Type 2 supernova are so heavy and dense they can fuse carbon and other heavy materials. The star becomes like an onion, with heavy matter on the inside and light on the outside. When the mass of the core becomes too big, the star implodes. That implosion bounces off the dense core and the star explodes. What's left after a supernova is called a neutron star, an ultra-dense object. If the star is heavy enough, the implosion doesn't bounce off, and the star becomes a black hole. During the explosion of the star, heavy elements are launched into space. Those elements form planets, and on Earth, life. Now that we have learned how the stardust arrived on Earth, we can move on to the next set of questions. How did the stardust become us? How did the stardust end up in our bodies? How are we born from stardust? How did the stardust become life? We want to focus on one of the first steps in the process, prebiotic chemistry. This field mainly focuses on the question of how life was created out of all the pieces lying and floating around. This is not an easy question. Because we have no traces of prebiotic processes, we can only make theories about reactions that are consistent with our understanding of science. One of the important driving forces of life can also give us clues about the chemistry before life. Evolution or selection clearly played an important role. Systems and reactions that were not clearly favorable would not have thrived. You can picture it like this. When two molecules happen to meet and sparks fly, they can form bonds with each other. What happens next depends very much on their strength of their relationship. Much like normal evolution, they can spread their favorable states because they are more enduring. What does make our lives a bit easier in this search is that we already know the outcome. By looking at the processes as they take place now, we can get an idea of the direction our research should head. The stripped down version of these biochemical pathways as they are now may have taken place in a prebiotic world. Looking at what the stardust does in our bodies now, we might be able to work out how it came together without the help of life. In our bodies, the stardust allows us to live. Here, the elements such as nitrogen, hydrogen, carbon, and oxygen form one of the most important kinds of molecules for life. Proteins. Proteins are formed from amino acids. All amino acids have an amino group, a carboxyl group, and an alpha carbon with a hydrogen bonded to it. Where amino acids differ is in their R group. There are 23 different amino acids that are used to build proteins, with 23 different R groups. Amino acids combine into polypeptides. There are different ways that a polypeptide can fold. As a result of this, there are countless proteins, and their interactions are complicated and difficult to understand. The study of proteins on a large scale is called proteomics. This field involves analyzing large numbers of proteins to understand the interactions between them. Due to the absolutely enormous number of proteins, and therefore an even larger number of possible interactions between them, there's a lot left to discover in this field. The effort will be well worth it, as proteins are essential for almost all the important processes in the cell. We can learn a lot about our bodies from this. It's also important to understand proteins to learn how life came to be as it is. All cellular life requires protein, and so protein is an essential puzzle piece in the mystery on the origin of life. The more we study these topics, the better we come to understand how we came to be from the dust of dying stars.